Here is the question I want you to sit with just for a second. What would you attempt to do if you knew with absolute certainty that you could not fail? I'm going to guess whatever comes to your mind when you ask yourself this question, you are not doing it yet. You're still thinking about it. Not fully, not boldly, not without the quiet voice in the background saying, "Who do you think you are?" My guest today has been answering that voice from stages across the world and speaking to thousands of people. He's been near homeless. He has survived near fatal accident. He rebuilt from public burnout and then wrote a book called Because You Can. And in that book, he's stating declarations and one complete transformation journey for anyone who has ever wondered if they are enough. Whether you think about Forbes, you think about TEDx, you think about keynotes in different countries, talk about the number of lives that he has appeared on. I mean, it's countless. He doesn't speak from the mountaintop. He speaks from the climb. And he makes a difference everywhere he goes. Marcus Black, you are welcome to the Clarity Mandate podcast.
Wow, wow, wow. What an introduction. Listen, guys, you're in for a treat. Listen, I just hope I can live up to all this greatness. I'm like, can I just take you with me everywhere I go? That was an incredible introduction. And there's no greater opportunity I have this day than to join you to speak life into all the incredible hearts and souls who will find this message. So I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
Marcus, it's my absolute pleasure to have you this day. I have been waiting for this day. You moved from near homelessness. You had a near fatal accident, public burnout. That's a heavyweight title that anyone can actually think about. And you came out of all of this and you wrote a book called Because You Can. What did you discover about what a person actually is in the moment that most people will think that all is over? But you found out something that even in those difficult moments, they shouldn't quit before they find out what they are capable of.
Man, what a question. That's an incredible question. And I did experience all of those things. And one thing I can tell you is it wasn't fun. But here's what I learned about humanity. And it's not only, it really was a reminder because I learned this early on, and we all learn it early on, and we just forget. There's something that we forget about the human spirit. And I remember when my first son was born, he was not 10 days old. And we decided we wanted to do a newborn photo shoot. So we scheduled the photographer and we saw these cute babies online and they're like just out of the womb. So we decided to do the photo shoot. When we got him to the house of the photographer, we were doing all these cute cuddly shoots and him in blankets. And we sat him on the couch and she said, okay, I just need to switch lenses right quick for the next shot. She switched her camera lens, and don't ask me how a 10-day-old baby had the strength to do this, but he flipped his little body and he rolled right off the couch and he hit the ground. And when he hit the ground, he started screaming. I mean, like blood curdling, just screaming. And my wife was frantic, and I was frantic, and the photographer was frantic, and everybody's in tears. And I picked him up, and we were holding him and caressing this little tiny baby. And we didn't know what to do. And we called our doctor, our pediatrician, and told him, explain what happened. And they just told us, hey, you calm down, parents. It's okay. Babies are resilient. Humans are more
Please.
resilient than you could even fathom. Say, actually, at that age, their bones still have elasticity where it's very hard to break a newborn baby's bones because they're not even solid yet. But the thing that reminded me was from the time we enter this earth, we are resilient. We're
Wow.
built for
Wow.
resilience. So
Wow.
when this situation after situation near homelessness, burnout, all the things that you're naming, it was just a reminder from
Wow.
the time I entered this world, I was resilient and we are resilient. We just
Wow.
get more opportunities to practice said
Hmm.
resilience.
That is really hitting it on the nail. But Marcus, you are, apart from talking about resilience and all that, you have delivered over 750 keynotes to audiences from 6 people to 60,000, if I'm not making a mistake. That's like thousands and thousands of
Mm-hmm.
hours of telling people that they can. But here is the real question in all of that. What is the most common reason that you see people doing what they know they are, or not doing? Let me put the question right, not doing what they know they are capable of doing. And not that they're saying it aloud, but you can see that through these stages, these guys, they know that this is what I want to do, but they're not doing it. And you keep going to stage after stage after stage.
Yeah. The resounding common thread that I've seen across humanity, no matter the country I'm in, is the biggest enemy any of us will ever face is the inner me. And I don't remember who I heard say that, but I definitely was like, wow, that's true. And so when people know what they want to do, they see it so clearly, but fear holds them back. A lot of the time, the fears that we face, even if you think about anxieties that we have, I saw a statistic. I don't remember the exact statistic, but it was like something like 85+% of the things we fear and worry about never happen. That's a huge number, but in our minds, it's so hard to challenge ourselves to move past that fear, past the trepidation, past the anxiety, when the worries, the what if it doesn't work, but I'm not enough, what if the people were right, what if I wasn't talented enough, the self-doubt, the self-deprecating voices. Sometimes that's attached to lived experience. We've all had people who didn't believe in us. We've all had people who didn't support us. We've all had things go awry. We've all had things that didn't shape up the way that we hoped that they would shape up. We've all had situations and circumstances like that. But we tend to carry those failures with us and keep them and tie them to us, and then they kind of weigh us down. We carry the extra suitcase baggage with us, and that baggage holds us back, keeps us weighted. Instead of letting go of the past and looking forward and pressing on, we just kind of stay stuck in that place of self-doubt.
Wow, that is so powerful. Extra luggage, extra luggage is just something that people just enjoy, especially ladies. I hope I'm speaking for most of us traveling, especially long distance, and you want to get this and get that and get this gift. And before you know it, you've got to pay extra, or that baggage won't go with you. That's the thing that many of us carry in all areas of our lives. And thank you for really bringing that up. But let's talk about your book. Because You Can has 13 declarations. Can you give us the one that surprised people in your view the most? The one where you can see a room kind of shift when it lands, when you talk about it and you begin to see people are like, I would like you to talk about it and how is it different from the rest of the declarations?
Yeah, there's two that are swimming around my mind,
Okay,
and
let's go for two.
it's interesting. I guess I'll tell you how this book was birthed because it just released in 2026, of course. It was at a book writers retreat that I did with a dear friend, and I want to say it was 23, it might have been 24. I was
Wow.
helping aspiring authors make their book outlines. And while they were in the middle of an assignment I gave them, and the mood music was playing, and we had the door open because we were in Isla Verde, sitting there on the beach, in Puerto Rico and San Juan, and I could hear the ocean waves crashing, and I don't know, I got inspired. And next thing you know, like there was like worship music playing, so I already set a mood, and I'm just overwhelmed with emotion and tears. And it's like that book was fed to me, and I jotted down those 13 truths. I didn't. It wasn't 13 in my brain. I just jotted down the truths, and it turned out to be 13. But that's where it was birthed from. But as I was writing those, a couple really stand out, and one of them, I think the biggest one is you can forgive. So each truth is like you can love, you can heal, you can bounce back. That's the kind of standard things people know that, but that forgiveness is something that holds a lot of people back because it causes us to come face to face with our torment, face to face with those who directly caused us pain. And a lot of people have an avoidant healing style. Like we try to avoid that, we got bury it, we act like it doesn't exist, just in an attempt to move past it. But that bitterness, that unresolved trauma, if we don't have forgiveness, will not only hold us back, it'll keep us captive, keep our hearts captive, keep our minds from being able to soar and fly freely. So that is the biggest one that people are like, everybody likes to talk about healing. So that chapter people love. But when I get into that forgiveness and how it's really a gift for you, it's not for them. Forgiveness is for you. And it's hard for people to come to grips with that because people don't want to forgive. Because I feel like if I forgive someone, I'm letting them off the hook for the pain they caused me. But what you don't realize is by you hanging on to that, you are taking up precious bandwidth in your brain that you don't even realize data being stored. Imagine you had a shelf space and you only got so much shelf space. Well, you got a whole row of your shelf just for the things that you haven't forgiven. That could be your next idea, your $1,000,000 idea, your world transformative idea, that next big thing that you need. The capacity in your mind to think and process doesn't have room because you're harboring unforgiveness. That's why that chapter is so different, because I'm teaching what forgiveness really is. It doesn't absolve the person who wronged you of the wrong that they caused. All it does is set you free in the process.
Forgiveness, it's really one of those things that it's hard. And you put it so bluntly that that's the one we all struggle with. And thank you for really bringing that out in the way you did in the book. And I hope everyone that is still yet to read that book, you want to go and check out, because you can buy back on Amazon and anywhere else that you get your books. I think it will do you some good. But let's talk about your podcast, your Vitalized Podcast. It's top rated podcast. It's about 2.5 right now globally, or even better if my data is outdated already, because these things change so fast. And listen in over 100 countries with over 138 and counting episodes. And you've had thousands and hundreds of conversations about purpose, talk about resilience, talk about transformation. Let's talk about, you talk about purpose is the power. And I think that's really one of your signature. And most leadership conversations treat purpose as a destination, like you arrive at your purpose. But I would like you to make a distinction. What is purpose as a power source? And why is defining your purpose not as the end, or call it the goal, really harder than to look at purpose as a destination? I want you to talk more. How do
I
you see
love it.
purpose?
Well, purpose is everything, first of all. So it's great that you asked me this question, and it is something I speak about extensively. But I liken it to this. I did a keynote actually for one of my mentors, Mr. Les Brown. Shout out to him, incredible human, incredible orator and communicator. But he asked me for a keynote as a part of a summit he was doing, and he wanted me to talk about purpose. And I started that by asking a question like, have you ever lost or misplaced something, and for the life of you, you just couldn't find it? And that was me. I was in that place, and I'm like, I know I have. Like most people you think of, it's like keys, the car keys. And it always happens when you need them most. You don't ever misplace the car keys when you got nowhere to go and you're sitting around hanging out all day. You only misplace the car keys when you have that big meeting that you got to get to, or you're running late for something. That's when you can't find them, or you're looking for, a lot of people, it's the remote control. I know I have a friend who tells a story that remote control, they went out of town for a week. It was missing the entire week. Nobody knew where it was. And so you're looking for these things. But for me, that thing is my glasses. So I just took my glasses off now, and I promise you, I cannot see you. I don't see a camera. I can see this microphone because it's right in my face, but I can't see nothing else. And so I'm really like, my vision, I can only see up close. So I'm looking every day. I'm looking for my glasses. I'm looking here, I'm looking there, I'm looking, and I can never find them. Now, as I keep going, I tear the house up. I'm in the couches. I look in the freezer because sometimes it's in random places, right? And just looking everywhere I can think, trying to retrace my steps. And then I come all the way back to square one, and then I sit down. And just when I've given up hope that I'm never going to find this elusive thing that I've been looking for, almost every time, 95% of the time, my glasses are right in the exact place that I left them, right in front of me on my nightstand, which is black, which is why I can't see them because they blend in. But they're right there all along, right in my face. Matter of fact, one time I misplaced my glasses. They were on top of my head, and I was looking everywhere, and they were. But I bring that up because that's what purpose is. We treat it like this. It's this elusive thing that I'll never find, or you mentioned the destination, like it's something I'll never achieve, or how do I arrive at it, like this big elusive thing. When majority of the time, you can't misplace it because purpose is who you are. You were born into the world with it. From the time you literally were born into this earth, purpose lived inside of you. I believe purpose is defined as the meaning you give your lived experiences. It's not your lived experiences. It's what you do as a result of your lived experiences. So I know you speak extensively about the firelight and some of these things that the world will perceive as a disadvantage that you understand was never a disadvantage. It was always your advantage. Guess what? In spite of your circumstance, you chose to take action steps, and the
Wow.
action steps that you took now became purpose.
Wow. That
It's the
is,
same when you mention my situations and my circumstances and my shortcomings and my setbacks, and I do speak from that climb because I want people to understand I didn't sit idle in those difficulties. I got up and I kept moving, and it's what I did with that pain that became,
wow.
that's how purpose is born and lived.
Well, I want everyone that you're going to be having the Marcus Black fire on this episode. It's coming. He's been moving, changing gears, and we are so grateful for how he really brings out the fire in the answers. And Marcus, you have coached speakers. I happen to have been one of your students. You've coached speakers, you've coached authors, you've coached professionals through your 4 steps programs, and even extending because you go over and above the call of duty in your service to everyone who has ever really worked with you. Here is the challenge, and I would like you to speak to someone who is listening right now, maybe who has a message they've never shared, or a story they've never told, or a purpose they are not pursuing. What's the most important thing that they need to hear before they decide whether to take the next step to get a coach or to do something about it? Talk about that.
Two things. The first thing you need to decide is you're worth it. You need to decide to choose yourself. Here's what I mean when I say that. If you don't decide to really choose you and pursue, the journey is going to be treacherous. There will be difficulties. There will be setbacks. There will be struggles. If you are not committed to you and what it is you hope to do, you will never see the vision to the end. So honestly, it's no, and I mean, if it's a rude awakening, it's a rude awakening. It is what it is. The truth is the truth. You might as well not even waste your time. So what I'm telling you is the groundwork that must be laid before you tell your story is that you matter. You're gonna commit to you, and no matter what the journey brings, you're going to keep showing up for you, moving and going and pushing towards the goal. Once you've chosen you, the second thing, I was asked the same question at a keynote I literally just did yesterday, Q&A, after I finished the keynote. Asked me the exact same question. Was the one thing, that person that's sitting on the idle, on the fence, what do they need to know? What would you tell them? And I said, it was a James Baldwin quote that revolutionized the game for me, changed my entire life. James Baldwin said this. He said, it took me many years of vomiting up all the filth that I have been taught about myself and that I even have began to believe before I was able to walk about this earth as though I had a right to be here. And that hit me so in the core of my soul, because what I realized after hearing him say that is that I belong here. And what I would tell that person who's thinking about sharing your story, thinking about sharing your voice, thinking about taking the next step, thinking about starting a journey, thinking about enrolling in school, thinking about finding a coach, thinking about investing in yourself, realize you belong there. Sometimes people who want to work with me will say, well, I don't have nothing. I don't even have a degree. I don't have any accolades. I don't have this big profession. I don't have a lot of followers. And they'll look at you specifically. They'll look at you, Dr. Vivian, and say, well, she's a whole doctor. She's an international dignitary. She's doing all these incredible things and world-renowned leader. That's the type of people he's working with. Then what do I don't have anything in common with her. I'm not where she is. So how could I have the ability to work with you? No. When you step into a room, it does not matter who's in the room. You must realize that you belong there. You have to silence the lies of what people have told you about yourself all throughout your life and realize you belong here. Where is here? Any room you walk into. If I walk in the room with the president and all of their cabinet, if I walk into a world leaders room, if I walk into a room of billionaires, doesn't matter the room I walk into, my value is not diminished because of the room that I walk into. I belong. And when you realize you belong, you move accordingly. So if you want to show up for you, realize that it's okay. You do belong. You're valuable. You're worth it. And it's worth you putting in the effort to invest in yourself if you're committed, because then that's when you can go and live your purpose.
That is fire. You belong in the room. Stop telling yourself that lie. Personally, I did that. Sometimes I feel like, even though I have been blessed to be on all kinds of stages, public stages, private sector, government, and all that, but sometimes you feel like, oh, no, I don't belong here. But I think I got to the point where I realized in updating and really taking my public speaking more professionally, I had to seek a coach. And guess what? My guest today is yours truly, my coach, who has really been helping me. And I mean, this past weekend, I was emceeing an event, and at that event, one professor called me by the side and said, do you want to come do this in Chicago? This morning, I got a phone call. It seems like, Dr. Vivian, you are hidden under the rocks. This is how the caller puts it. But I need to have coffee with you. You need to be on platforms. I listened to you on Saturday. I was at that event. I need to have coffee with you. Call me. I just had to look for your number. And I said, I need to have coffee with you because you need more platforms. You are loaded, girl. That's how she puts it. But those are things, if you don't go out there and know that because you can, and if you need mentorship, there are a lot of mentors out there. Yours truly, my coach in my keynote. It's really my guest today, and I'm honored to have you, Marcus. But let's talk about mental toughness. That's been a framework that you use a lot. And if you look at sports psychology and you look at the research around it, identifying different components, whether you're talking about control, you're talking about commitment, you're talking about challenges, you're talking about confidence. But your framework actually goes beyond this, and it adds what I can say it's missing in kind of our regular academic research on it. What is it, and why does the aspect of your lived experience that you talk about kind of give you access to a different dimension that research that we do. I speak from a research perspective in this area. I love to look at research. It's missing out when you look at what you speak about and what some of the research is missing that really helps in your coaching business.
Absolutely. And again, incredible. You're an incredible interviewer, by the way. And I'm honored to be a coach. I've been honored to be able to play a small part in the role of more people recognizing your greatness and your keynote. I can't wait for the world to hear it because it's fire like that. But when you talk about the research, which is valuable, it's important, and we need to understand it because it gives us parameters, it gives us boundaries, it gives us context to be able to understand leadership, the lived experience, mental toughness, and resilience. But the lived experience goes further and deeper because sometimes research isn't all encompassing, it leaves some people out. Like if you look at statistics, and there's all types of research, but I'm gonna use this one as an example because it's one that I use a lot, and that is the ACEs. If people know what ACEs is, it stands for Adverse Child Experiences. It's an entire system of research and statistics, and what's the statistics show. If you have a score 4 or higher, you are, and then it die early, all types of sickness and disease, in prison, jail. I mean, like that's what the statistics show. Studies show numbers for the people who have high scores in ACEs. Well, my wife scores 9, my score is 8. We are destined for doom based upon what the research and the studies show. But not only are we happily married, have been for an incredibly long time, we have a beautiful family, we have supportive boundaries. We literally have been able to break every singular cycle that studies and numbers and statistics said we couldn't. And how we knew we could do that was the things that we overcome came from our lived experience. If I started breaking down some of the specific things we went through, you haven't even heard the half of the horrors that we've experienced in our lives. But we're here and we're alive. And what that experience teaches us is I cannot allow the numbers and the research and the studies to define me, even though they shape our context. Your lived experience cannot be discounted, and it is more valuable on your journey toward you as the leader you're meant to be.
That is so powerful. And like you put it, research is always work in progress, and lived experiences and things like that. It's what really helps to build on existing models. And because you can, talking about
Yeah.
your book and showing that there are gaps in certain research.
Not all research is good also. Like I know there are good researchers, but I've seen people who will survey only 100 people, and there's a small targeted demographic, and it's not diverse, and they can skew the numbers by making it say what they want the numbers to say. And so that can make people who see that believe, and it's like, well, you need to do your research on the research. Who's conducting the research? You
That's
know,
right.
who are the people they survey? How many people did they survey? Because if it's a small data like a data group, then I don't know that you can really bank on that information.
Wow, that is so powerful and so true because it is what it is. It depends on what data you're looking at. You see, even in different areas, people will say, let's get new research. You can use any kind of research to back up your point, and that's so powerful. But this podcast, The Clarity Mandate, we speak to audiences also across different continents. And when we look at audiences like your audience, for the book, Because You Can, and your entire message, I think that it actually lands against talking about dealing with systemic internal constraints that impact on how people see themselves and see the world, not just mindsets. But when we look at, from my perspective as an economic, structural, economic, institutional barriers, and how can you hold together a message of because you can with an honest account of systems that makes it hard. If we look at the US economy and we're talking about because you can, and you look at messages and people talking about Black Lives Matters and inequality, how do you hold on? And people looking at systemic
Yeah.
economic, because as a transformation economics, looking at systemic constraints in an economy are always things that are of interest to me. Because you can, to the limits that the systems allow you. Speak to that, Marcus.
Yeah, that's good. All of these things are social constructs, right? But I think, and I'm choosing my words carefully here, I was born in Memphis, Tennessee. If you don't know much about Memphis, Tennessee, it's one of the most starved, economically deprived communities in the country, which is why it has the highest rate of violent crime. I mean, there's a lot of ills that plague the city of Memphis. And I was raised in Mississippi, historically the poorest state in the United States of America, which also has the strongest history of negative race relations. And like I was doing my genealogy, just to give you guys an example. I was doing my genealogy tree and I paid for the service so I could track, and I could only track 2 generations past. Once I got to my great grandmother, who I met, who I know, once I got to her, there was no record of her live birth because birth certificates and up to a certain point in Mississippi were destroyed. So there was like, you're not even a human to us, so we're not even going to keep a record of your birth. So I could only trace so far because of that. So when you talk about the issues, systemic issues, I get it. And I know there's somebody who's saying, man, he's telling me I can, but how can I believe that when I'm looking at this uphill battle and what I'm facing? And I'm telling you, I was born in the heart of that, the worst of the worst in the United States of America, yet I still became a 2-time best-selling author. I still became a 2-time TEDx speaker. I still featured in Forbes, listeners all over the world, built this brand globally. And I did it in spite of those things. I heard Eric Thomas speak about this, and he said, I wish I had a man to teach me how to father, but I didn't have a man to teach me how to be a father, and that's okay. What am I gonna do? Cry about it? What does that change? If I sit and focus only on what I cannot change, then nothing happens. Nothing changes if nothing changes. He said, I live in the country of America. There's a thing called racism. It exists. It's real. Am I gonna cry about it? What does that change? That doesn't change anything. So can I change everything? No, but I can change something. So I changed what I could by showing up. So when I say you can, I mean, you don't know unless you try. The only way to ensure it doesn't happen is to never try. You don't know what relationships you can build. You don't know what barriers you can break. When Dr. Martin Luther King walked the earth and was fighting for equality that he never got to personally see or experience, what if he said, well, the systems are so the dream of my kids sitting with kids who don't look like them, or even the dream of generations from now, a young man named Marcus Black sitting in a studio owned by a dear friend whose name is Taylor and a brother who's white, and they can coexist as brothers in a world. That doesn't happen if the person just throws away the dream and says, well, because of the system. So when I'm telling you, you can, yeah, you're gonna face opposition. I faced opposition. You're gonna face adversity. I face mistreatment because of the way that I look along the way. But I only focus on what I can control. You can't control what you can't control. You can only control what you can control. So focus on the controllables, control the controllables, and move forward. Take action, and you will be surprised what you can achieve and accomplish.
Wow, that
Because you can.
because you can. Marcus, you have just been so great. We've talked about the internal barriers, you've dealt with them, and we went to the systemic barriers, and you have spoken light and fire into them. And anyone sitting out there listening to this episode, I don't know where the excuse will come from, because whether you're looking internally, you can. Whether you're looking externally and at the system, you can, irrespective of the systems. And this is so powerful. And thank you. And that's why you are my coach. Thank you, Marcus. And you've been on stages, sometimes in front of thousands of people. And you've been on stages or in a small room with 6 people. Which one is harder?
Definitely not the big crowd. The big crowd can create more nerves just off the energy in the room, but I don't see those people. It's like an ocean. Like I'm standing. The last one I did was like the people. Like I don't see all of those people. It's harder because it's just a lot of big lights. All I see is lights. But when you're talking about a room of 6 people, 8 people, 10 people, and I can see every one of y'all looking at me, I can see your eyes, I can see every expression and emotion. I can see you. Matter of fact, I just did a corporate retreat recently. I did a corporate. They brought me out. A corporation had me come and do some leadership training and development, and I think it was 11 of them in the room, and one of them arms folded with a frown the entire time. I was like, I think he hates me. I think he don't. And he's been in that corporation for longer than I've been alive. So he's been in the corporate professional for 40 years. So he's looking at me like, and I'm assuming he's like, what can you teach me about this? And I've been doing it longer than you've been alive. So that's all. That's definitely harder. But I do think, um, for those of you who are starting out and maybe you're starting in smaller rooms, don't despise those humble beginnings, because that's where you really learn the art. That's where you learn to read a room. That's where you learn to read people, where you learn to engage people, where you learn to adjust. Like that's the most valuable places when you're in those rooms.
The smaller rooms are harder. That's where you learn people. That's where you learn the engagement. I mean, thank you, Marcus. That is so, so powerful. And the name of this podcast is the Clarity Mandate, and so intentionally, because I believe that there is a moment in everyone's life that you think that everything has settled. And sometimes you are building things that people might not even be seeing, but you, Marcus, have built from homelessness in a near fatal accident to public burnout and being on stages across the world. What do you understand about your clarity? What actually is clarity for you? And what has it made possible for you that you could not have learned anywhere else except really having some personal clarity?
Yeah, clarity came for me on my 21st birthday. At 18 years of age, it's in my first book, Asleep at the Wheel. That was my wake up call. I had a near death experience, flew off the highway, crazy accident. I'm not supposed to be alive. 0% chance I'm supposed to be alive. After that happens, I'm mad. I'm angry because I was playing football. That's now ruined. My body isn't, I still have full functionality of my body, but I can't go and do that anymore. Now that that's off the table, I'm in a desperate place. Um, Trying to figure out what life is about. I'm angry. I'm angry at God. I'm like, why? And then I'm questioning everything. Why was I born into poverty? Why was I born in the poorest state in the union, in such a starved place economically? And why was I born in such a harsh place with a terrible history? Why? Why me? Why? And I'm just asking all these questions. I'm angry. I'm arguing. I'm fussing. I'm fighting, arguing with God. And it was years of that. And it took 2.5 years when I turned 21 before I finally got the answer to the question that I had been asking, why me? Which is, I was never going to get the answer to the question I was asking, because the question was never why me. The question was always, what is it for? And when my paradigm shifted from why me to what is it for, I made a promise. That's when I realized, okay, there's a purpose to my pain. And I made a promise to God, I'm going to spend the rest of my entire life, every waking moment, pouring my heart and soul out to better people. That I made that promise at 21. I am 39. I will be turning 40 in a couple months, and I have not let God. I've honored that promise, and I continue to honor that promise. And so when you talk about that clarity, for me, what it looks like every day that I wake up, producing help and hope in the world. When I say hope, I mean helping at least one person every day. That is my mission. If I show up and whether I'm online, whether I'm streaming, whether I'm on a podcast, whether I'm on a stage, I'm honoring my commitment to God. I'm giving myself away. I'm pouring my heart and soul to build people, to produce help, to produce hope, to be a resource, and to help people make their dreams a reality. That's what it looks like for me.
Wow, that is so powerful. Helping people, building hope every day. I mean, it couldn't have been put any other way. Thank you, Marcus, learning from your own life experiences and Is there, as we begin to round up, anything else you would like to share with our listeners?
The last thing I'll say is this. As a chapter in my book, and it's one of the most pivotal chapters, it's actually a second one I was thinking about earlier when you asked me. And that chapter is called I Decided I Could, and So I Did. I decided I could, and so I did. In my entire life, I was always told what I cannot do. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't do this. Oh, you can't do that. Who do you think you are? You want to start a podcast. You don't know nothing about podcasts. You don't even have equipment. I didn't, but I knew a friend. You don't know nothing about it. You don't know this. You don't know that. You don't know this. You don't know that. You can't do this. You can't do that. Do you know where you come from? Do you know what? Do you know how much that costs? This is all the things that people are saying to me. And I believed them for a long time that I can't, until one day I made a decision that, no, you know what? I think I can. Just like that little engine that could. I decided I could, and then I did. Everything. When I started this journey, I reached out to a coach just like you did. First thing he asked me to do was write a list of goals and send them to me that we were going to make a reality. 2 years after I had worked with him, I went back on this very podcast and I pulled up that email and I had tears in my eyes because I realized I had checked off everything off that. Everything I decided I could do, I did. So what happened then? I had to make another list. And now, another 3 years after that, everything that was on that second list is crossed off. Now, guess what? So I'm telling you, if you're listening to me and you're hearing this, all this because you can talk and all this hope talk and the clarity talk, what does it mean to you? It starts with a decision, D-Day, to let today be your decision day. That I'm going to go and do something that nobody thinks I can do. I'm going to go do something that the world has never seen. I'm going to go do something that can revolutionize generations. I'm going to leave my mark on this world. I'm going to make my dreams come true, not for me, but for the people who need me to show up and make my dream a reality. And if you do that and you commit to it, then I'm telling you, in a world that's telling you you can't, I'm telling you you can. So stop questioning, stop doubting, stop hesitating and delaying. Go move today, show up today, build your dream today. Because you can.
Wow, that is so powerful, because you can. And I can't thank Marcus so much, because, I mean, he has helped me to package my keynote. It's always been in me, but working with Marcus and packaging the Firelight Advantage. I mean, if you want to know more about it, send us direct messages and we would be on your stage, lighting the fires and helping you take your organization to the next level. Marcus Black, 2 times Amazon best-selling author, international keynote speaker of note, host of the Vitalized Podcast. You want to check the Vitalized Podcast everywhere that you listen to podcasts. And a man who has been on stages across 102 countries, telling the audience, whether it's 6 people or thousands of people, the same truth. Because you need to take that next step. And guess what? He doesn't speak from the mountaintop. Marcus speaks from climbing. He speaks from moving. He speaks from his experiences. Talk about near homelessness. Talk about the accident. Talk about burnout. Talk about the one who has been through it all. And he says the same decision, the same thing over and over again. Because you can take that step, because you can. And everyone listening out there, whether you are in a valley, whether you are on the mountain, the mandate that Marcus has put to us today, it's very clear from his own experiences. You need to take that step, because you can, irrespective of what you have been through. Marcus' books, you can see it on Amazon or anywhere else. We'll put the links in the description. I just want to thank you. This has been the Clarity Mandate Podcast.